Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm Megan Russ, Interpretation Director at the Frist Art Museum. Thank you so much for joining us for this evening's Artist Perspective lecture with David Gumbs. Closed captioning is available, and you can turn live captioning on or off by using the controls at the bottom of your screen. We will begin with the land acknowledgement. The Frist Art Museum sits on land that Cherokee and Shawnee Native peoples, elders, and ancestors call their homeland. We acknowledge and pay respect to them and offer deep gratitude and respect to the land and water that support us. The Frist Art Museum is thrilled to feature two interactive multimedia works by David Gumbs and our Martin ArtQuest Gallery this year. Originally from the Caribbean island of St. Martin and based in the island of Martinique, David Gumbs is an award-winning interdisciplinary artist. He uses video, computer programming, graphic design, and other techniques and media to create his work. In his interactive video installations, David invites you to engage with his artwork by moving your body within an area in front of the screen. You can see Inner Gardens in Martin ArtQuest until July. And the second work by David Gumbs, Tropical Bliss, will be on view from July until the end of the year. Special thank you to our Experiential Learning Director, Samantha Andrews, for bringing David's work to the Frist. Before I turn things over to David to speak more about his work, the Frist Art Museum would like to acknowledge the Frist Foundation, the Metro Nashville Arts Commission, the Tennessee Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts for their continued operating support. I'd also like to share a couple reminders. At the end of the program, we'll be joined by the Frist Education and Engagement intern, Sarah Scupian, for question and answers. You can submit your questions using the Q&A feature anytime throughout the presentation. And thank you in advance for your patience with us as we present this program online this evening. In the event of a technical difficulty, we'll pause the presentation and we'll work quickly to resolve the issue. If you're having technical difficulties on your personal device, feel free to use the chat to send me a message and I'll do my best to assist you. It is now my pleasure to welcome David Gumbs.
Hello, good night, everyone. Thank you, Frist Art Museum, for the invitation and for selecting my work. Thank you, Samantha, so much. I'm happy to be here and to share my work with you all. So tonight I'm going to showcase some of my recent works, and I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the recent interactive works and performance works that I did. And I'm going to finish with some of my the base of what I do, and that brings to the digital work. So here we go. So the Caribbean island of St. Martin is based in Central America. Most of the times I'm being asked, where is it based from? So this is why I'm showing you the map with it. Here are my recent projects, as I mentioned. So I just came back from French Guiana, where I did a multimedia performance with the French saxophonist that's named Ashby King. So we did like a multimedia performance where, as he plays with the saxophone, I animate the frequencies of the saxophone, animate in real time the evolution of the visual piece that you're going to see. So I'm just going to show you a small extract from that, knowing that it's a bit long, so that you have an idea of how the work is video mapped on the building and how the setup was. So it was the opening of the Microphonie, which was the first Microphonie in the West Guyana. So it's really a nice experience. So as you can see, the particles are actually reacting to the volume and the frequencies of the saxophone in real time. So I'm actually modifying the animations as they go on the fly with the saxophonist. These are the type of works that I like to do and that I'm really looking forward to do more in the future. Next, we have one of our commission interactive sound and light installation that's named Waves. Waves was inspired by like the hurricane seasons, our coastal reefs, the sea, where the island influences, especially during hurricane seasons. And it was the first time that I worked with lights and only lights, no video. So here you have the interactive conch shell. As you approach your hand or your body to the shell, it actually modifies the soundscape and the lightscape in real time. The whole piece was commissioned by the new contemporary museum in Martinique that's being actually built right now, but they started a whole programming around contemporary arts. And the place that hosts us is the Bibliothèque Chercheur, the main huge library that's a replica from a great building in France. So I'm just going to show you a little fragment of the video so that you have an idea of how the sound is.
Oui, ça va. On va contacter la Jamaïque.
So the whole idea around this piece was to challenge the influences of hurricane seasons, but speak about the conch shell. That's like really the base of all that I do. Most of the works that I started doing are based around this shell that symbolize really our Caribbean heritage. It's a wind instrument also. And what I like to do is to make traditional heritage with new contemporary digital works. So it was a great experience working with all these LEDs for the first time. I think it was a original piece that haven't been seen in Martinique at this sort of level of technology. Now we have, I'm presenting you my second solo show in the US, and that's called Find Shade While the Sky is Pouring Hot. It was presented in California at the Art Kiosk. The curator is Lance Fong. That's a great, really open-minded curator that it was really nice working with. So I created these new pieces. It's a new series of work that inspired by the flamboyant tree that we have all over the Caribbean and in many places in the world. It's a work that was created during the pandemic when the first lockdown that we got in Martinique. I started to look out through the window and was wondering, okay, what can I create from what I see, in my surroundings? And I created. I saw it was the blooming season of the flamboyant tree, and I realized that I didn't even know anything about the flamboyant tree, and the island I'm from, St. Martin, has a lot of them. So I decided to search, and I discovered that it was a symbol of pride, resilience, strength. It's a tree that the roots can be submerged for like weeks, and the tree wouldn't die. So here's a few slides of just showing you the setup of the AR component, how it was configured on the art kiosk. We really like to use the depth, showing how the figure is in the forefront, this sort of hybrid figure inspired by streetwear or neighborhood influences, and having this backdrop with this sort of depth with it that brings something unique to the configuration and to the piece. So that was a great experience. It was the first time working in this way with AR, augmented reality, and also working with cutout forms, and it's really inspired me for some new works that are going to come. We had the opportunity to work with for the Coral Gable Illuminate Festival. It was the first video mapping festival in Coral Gables, also curated by Lens Fong. That's actually where we met. And the stills that you see here are part of the work that were actually acquired by the owner, the Davidson Baden owner. So it's a projection that's 12 storage high. I'm just showing the fragments here because they are better quality than the actual footage that I have. And this is one of the pieces that's called Echo of My Skin that is projected on the wall of the theater. So I was lucky to be able to showcase two works in the event. And here's a small video showing the interaction. Living in the Caribbean, it doesn't come often. The opportunity doesn't come often to project at such a large scale. So the whole team was really awesome in testing, giving advice, finding the right material and the right place so that the work could be seen. So this was an awesome opportunity. So this piece and the other piece are also like a token to all those we lost during the pandemic. And also, especially this piece was speaking about the conditions of Afro-Americans and police brutality in a certain way. The lines symbolize how we think we are free, but we are actually trapped into our system. So that was the concept behind this piece. I'm going to present now a few slides of my first solo show in the US for the Telfair Museum. It was really a great opportunity to show the work in such a huge space. So here are some images of the different pieces. So the show story it started from Dusk to Gold. I actually was inspired by my island influences from Sandy Ground, which is the neighborhood that I was brought up into. It's quite a dusty place. Living on the islands, we have a lot of dust from the sea, from the Sahara, also. So it's something that's felt like interesting as a title to talk about the cycle of life, renewal of life. You can come from a small space, but eventually do big things if you work hard enough for it. So I think that was the whole inspiration in the title of this piece. This is a new second version of my Blossoms piece. That was originally you have to blow in a conch shell that was placed in the middle of the piece. But with the pandemic, we actually decided to modify the piece. So it's a song-driven piece now. When you come into the space and as you speak or you sing, the patterns will react to your voice instead of reacting to the strength of your breath as you would have blown in the shell. Here are some other stills that show how the space was configured. And I really enjoyed seeing families come in and join the pieces. That was awesome. So let's come back to Martinique now. I had the opportunity to do a performance that's called Inner Child, where I invited a DJ, a dancer, and a sculptor to collaborate with me. So I created, as you can see, the sculpture that you see here is the same one that was used in Wave. And I think the inspiration for the Waves piece that we saw just now came from this performance that I did a bit earlier in the year. So the whole idea was to work around my childhood musical influences that are like reggae, dancehall, but also electronic music that I discovered afterwards. And so we did a live performance with the DJ and me, video mapping uh, the images on the in the ceiling, having the, join on the dancer also, and having the public at the end come and enjoy this huge interactive installation that you can see in the middle and on the right. So this installation was based on fragments of body and how, as you move in front of it, how your image or outlines would mix with those fragments of bodies that have a reference to the sea and to the ocean also. I wanted to do something vertical because the theater has this huge hall that was never occupied in that sense in the Caribbean. And it was really, I was really proud to be able to go through this vision thanks to the Scène Nationale Atrium. That's the name of the theater here. Another piece that's like, I think my largest piece up to date, it's called Econation. It's interactive video tunnel. I'm just going to launch it and show you a few fragments of it so that you have an idea how it works. As the public walks actually in the tunnel, their feet, sorry, trigger and change videos and sound in real time. So it was token to La Traversée, as we say in French, the journey that slaves had to go through, people that came to discover the islands on the Caribbean had to go through the lengths they had to travel. So here's a extract from it. So yeah, it was part of an exhibition called La Esvelt, with a lot of artists from Central America, me as a French artist. Yeah, it was really nice. Here are a few stills from I was able to be selected for the current New Media Festival in Santa Fe. I'm really so proud of this because I've been following their work for so long. They fell in love with the Blossoms cube, interactive cube that we saw earlier, but this was before the pandemic. So this is the original version where you actually blew into the shell and triggered in real time the animations. That's going to show you some fragments of the pattern. Sorry. So just to talk about this piece briefly, it was created in Beijing during my David artist residency. I discovered the pollution, the industrial pollution that I never thought I would see in my life. So the patterns that are here are based on plants that are known in the Caribbean for helping purifying the quality of air in enclosed spaces. Then this is I won the National Street Contest for St. Martin and Street Art Contest, sorry, for St. Martin and Martinique in 2017. And it's one of my proudest works. I'm just going to show you a fragment of the video mapping that I did, an interactive video mapping that I did called Eclosion Digital. I didn't want to, lower the sound. I didn't want to create video mapping that was just like, okay, after 20 minutes, you've seen the video mapping and the experience is finished. I really wanted to have families, children come and interact with the piece and choose the animations that they wanted to do. So basically, there's an interface or a tactile screen where the public comes and change the scope, the visual scope, and can play with the animations in real time on the building. And that's the type of interactive video mapping that I would like to do more in the future also. So it was the first outside projection and video mapping that I did at that scale. I did a few before, but they were more like random. And this one was really like a great like opportunity with a commission piece. So yeah, here's the where you can see. I also love the black and white patterns that give this impression of lace or embroidery. It wasn't done on purpose, but actually it's something that we have a lot in our homes in the Caribbean, inspired from our colonial past. So it was really something interesting. So the base of my work, the influences of my work are a bit based on this citation, as you see in French, from Antoine Lavoisier, that's 17th century philosopher and chemist. Mass is neither gained nor lost, but merely transformed. I think I'm really obsessed with the idea of transformation, energy that's transformed, how lives renew itself, and also questions linked to perception. Are we what we perceive? When we look at clouds, when we see a dog or a flower in the clouds, is there something that influence our life that make us see those things? So here's the introduction to the base of the work that I do and how I started. I started using the shells, as you saw, because I was searching for a way to speak about the Caribbean, even though at first I was running away from that when I was only doing my random interactive work. But then I realized that when I did a few residency in Amsterdam, in different places, all the artists that I met had something unique that spoke about where they were from. And then I decided to see how I can also speak about my origins from an island point of view. And I searched a lot and used a lot of patterns and discovered, fell accidentally on the shell and started using the aesthetic of the shells and different plants that we find in our region by changing the colors and stuff. So these two stills that you see here are actually stills from animations, from generative animations that run in real time, and that I capture fragments of them to do prints and digital stills. I furthered my explorations when I'm projecting on bodies and trying to figure out why the symmetry is so important, because in nature there's a lot of symmetry, but also obviously we are part of nature, so the human body also. Another piece along the conch shell, but that's used on a backdrop that speaks really about the tablecloth that my grandmother used to use on the dressing table where we ate. So it was all these influences that I started to mix together. This is another piece that's more like an experimental piece, the way I'm going to talk about. Yeah, it's more like a self-portrait. I actually was in a place of doubt at that time and felt that I was submerged, and decided to work on this piece. So it took some time. It basically took slowly, I guess, 3 years in the building, working on some fragments of elements and then deciding to use my own portrait inside of it. So I'm just going to show you a fragment of it in the video that follows. So you saw that I do a lot of digital works, but basically the work that I do come from this. I still have to draw actually, and I still draw often. Sometimes 3 weeks will pass before I do some of these random drawings, and then I realize that okay, something is wrong, and I realize that I need to draw. So when I do my artist residencies, since like Art Oh My that I did in New York, the visiting artists and curators were surprised that I still needed to draw. They was encouraging me to mainly work in digital, and I was like, yeah, but I still need to do this. So it's something that I keep now more at a personal level. But these random drawings can take like a whole walls. I work on small formats, A4, A3, or big walls. So this is a exhibition that I did in Paris City Hall that's called Latitude 2009. It's an old piece, but I still show it because it was one of the only time that I was able to showcase my photography work of these strange trees that I took pictures in Cuba, Japan, Martinique, where I live in St. Martin, and that I was able to mix it with these random drawing did in situ on location while I was setting up the exhibition. So it was a good opportunity to do this 9 meter wide and 3 meters high drawing. That actually something that I haven't done in a while, but it's really something that I think I would like to do, mixing with video projections and video mapping. A few stills on my theater and dance collaborations. That's how I actually sometimes get new inspirations also, working with choreographers and dancers and also actors from theater. So this is one of the pieces with two French choreographers from Guadeloupe and Martinique. One of the recent pieces with Marlene Myrti, about dates around the eruption of the volcano in Martinique. It was a nice experience, and it was really interesting seeing how the dates respond so well on the architecture, on this old colonial architecture. A fragment of another part of the piece. Another theater work, dance work with kids. There was over 100 kids in this piece, and it was my longest video work, like 90 minutes of constant video during the whole spectacle. This is a piece that's called Le But de Roberto Carlos. It's done with one of the French of African heritage, famous screenwriter and comedian, Hassan Kouyaté. I was really honored that he chose me to work with him and give me this huge latitude to create some interesting scenes for this piece that actually traveled the world also. Now to close the presentation, here are some of my references and inspirations. So you have Edouard Glissant, the Martinican poet from the Negritude. Aimé Césaire, also from Martinique. What I like with Edouard Glissant is he's writing along the two mondes, and the whole concept about the palétuvier, which is a tree that you find in the swamps, but it has multiple roots. And he actually has this metaphor of us Caribbean people that are actually, we have Chinese heritage, Indian heritage, French heritage, African heritage. And I like that whole concept of two mondes. One of my favorite artists, Wilfredo Lam of all times, with his painting La Jungle from Cuba. I think what inspires me here is the knowledge and heritage that he has from like nature. There are spirits in nature, spirits in trees, and this sort of surreal environment and landscapes that he depicts, that he personalized, that I really enjoy. For my random work, I really looked a lot. I was influenced a lot also after by Jackson Pollock, because I discovered his work afterwards, after starting the automatic drawings work. And I like the fact that there's this sort of dance trance when he actually paints. He's in this sort of state of trance that I like to look at his videos. And because I have the same when I do large scale work, I find myself It's only the hand that goes. Your mind is no longer in control. It's only the body that speaks. I enjoy Desiree Dorgon. That's a Dutch photographer. I was lucky to see some of her pieces in when I was in Amsterdam, but also in Paris. And I stayed like mesmerized by like the beauty of the atmosphere, the trees, the reference to classical paintings, but with photography. And Miguel Chevalier, that's our French, one of the first French multimedia artists that basically still influences me today because he has huge work along these artificial plants, artificial trees in nature. So he creates like his own artificial um, garden, and that's something that I'm looking forward to do in the future once I start to collaborate with programmers, developers for further commission works. Andre Jones is an American visual artist. I love the way how his work is so supercharged with all these textures, patterns, but also the themes usually reference life, technology, and the linear of life also. So yeah, this is a bit, this closes my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it, and let's see if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. That was absolutely incredible to be able to hear kind of your process and more in depth about your work and to see things. It was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I have some questions, and then I think the chat will probably have some questions, so I can kind of ask you those as they come up. My first one, I was kind of curious more about your process of creating digital work. I know you talked about the drawings that you make and how that kind of starts as an origin point for your finished digital works. And I was wondering what kind of programs are you using and what does it look like for you to take that drawing and then digitize it and get this really finished, polished final project?
So I have like 2 or 3 processes, but the main one is so I have the random drawings that you saw at close to the end of the presentation. Those stay as they are, like they are really raw. I actually use them only sometimes for like backdrop or textures. But then like most of the work that I do, I go out and take pictures of plants. So you see me in people's gardens or over someone's fence, trying to hide something and trying to capture the essence of maybe a tree or root or something that I haven't seen before. I go also like in nature, do hikes and stuff. So basically, for the recent digital work that you see, it's a lot of photography work that are then actually edited in like edited software like Photoshop, GIMP, and then I use Isadora from Tricatronics. That's the main tool that I use that allow me as a visual artist that's not really good into coding. Like when I see lines of code, I just run away in the opposite direction. But this is like building blocks, and I actually understand better the logic of building blocks and linking them together because it's visual for me. So Isadora is like an open sketchbook. I can really put whatever I want into it and immediately have a result that's live and that it can be modified in real time.
Awesome. That's so cool. And my second question, I guess, might kind of have a bit of a similar answer, but your pieces are so bright and colorful, and I love the saturation and the variation on the colors. And I was curious, does that come from that same type of process of taking pictures and kind of sourcing the things around you? Or I guess, how do you come up with your color palettes? How do you kind of integrate them into the finished piece?
It's only after traveling that I realized the color palette, actually, because based in the Caribbean, you are quite submerged with a lot of pink, yellow, green, blue that are like really flashy. You have a lot of rust also, like the tulls, the roof. I forgot the name, but the metal things there from on the roofs and stuff. You have a lot of those that you can find like anywhere that's rusty. So that these are a lot of copper colors. And I didn't realize at first that my work was colorful. It's only when I went and lived like for 10 years in Paris that when I showed my sketch or my processes, like people would always tell me, yeah, but you should dim down the colors a bit. It's a bit too bright. And I was like, why are they asking me to dim the colors? And it took me like 5 years actually, basically, to realize that it's just because that my sensitivity of light is quite different, and that it's in me. So at one point, I started to do digital work, like the mainstream works that were only black and white and fine lines and stuff. And I realized that it wasn't fitting me. So I can do it sometimes, but then there's an explosion of something behind. So the colors really come from the my Caribbean Heritage palette schemes, but also I think there's something that triggers it also. In 2000, there was a hurricane that was called Lewis in the 90s, I think. That was like the first major Category 4 hurricane that I witnessed in St. Martin. And there was something that was quite stunning the other day after that, although the whole drama and the really dramatic thing is that I can see from my house to the city where I couldn't see before. And there was just like this sort of bright light that lit everything. Even during the night, you had the impression that you can see way far. And I think that has some sort of influence on me because I was a teenager at first when I lived that experience. And I think the sort of glitter that I have in my imagery references this sort of surreal difficulty to look at something that's quite too intense as an experience. So as I go older, I think things start to make sense. And I start to look back at when I was a teenager.
Yeah, so just kind of going off of what you said about how in Paris they were thinking that your colors were too bright, and just how you've displayed in so many countries. And how do you notice that the perception of your work changes based on the country you're displaying in, or do you notice that people interact with them differently? I guess, how does it change based on where your piece is being exhibited?
Yeah, I actually, the interactive pieces really have they bring me this feedback is that when I did when I do my random drawings, I'm always interested in what people perceive. What do they see? Do they see a dinosaur? Do they see a giraffe? Do they see a leaf? Do they see a flower? But I'm not always there to have that feedback with them. Whereas the interactive pieces, you can, when I'm there or when I'm sending footage, you can see how mesmerizing people are with the pieces, how they actually at one point lock out no one else exists. They are only in harmony with the piece. And the different depending on places, like when I was in China, only women actually came and interacted with the pieces. The men were like, okay, this is interesting, but not for me. When I'm in other Caribbean islands, then in Martinique, people will jump and fight by playing with each other to be in front of the piece, to be the first one in front of the piece. In Saint Martin or in Martinique, it depends. They would be a bit more shy. So yeah, the interactive pieces show me that depending on your background, your culture, the importance you give to who's looking or not, you can really engage more with the pieces. And sometimes in the past, I used to be a bit surprised because I worked like for 6 months, 2 years on a piece sometimes because I'm self-taught. I'm not an engineer or anything, but as I go, I learn new techniques and stuff. And then someone will come in front of the piece and stay like 20 seconds and say, okay, that's, isn't there anything else? And I'm like, oh, wow, okay. So I built that experience from also observing and saying, okay, I have to accept, to let go, so that people, how to say, they in French we will say, qu'ils s'approprient, that they appropriate, they accept the pieces and they play with them as they want to. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been really blessed to be able to be with your piece in ArtQuest for a lot of the days in the week, and it's crazy. Kids are always trying to find new ways to interact with it, and it's so interesting after seeing so many people walk up to it. It feels like there's still new ways and different takes on it, I guess. So for me, I know you're a huge inspiration and to a lot of young digital artists, because there isn't particularly solid field that's kind of set out there yet in terms of digital art. What big piece of advice do you have for people wanting to go into digital art?
Yeah, I'm being asked this a lot, and it's strange because for me, I'm just like beginning still, even though the work is out there and going further than I expected it to. But I think my sincere advice would be not trying to do what others are doing. Your path may take a longer time than those that go on the mainstream and do things that are in a sort of fashion. It's finding your voice, finding what you want to say, and if you don't have any clue of what you want to say, but you're creating something, just trusting in the process that this piece has to come out now. It's not going to come out in 2 years, 3 years. It has to come out now. And from this piece being created now, something new is going to be triggered. Because sometimes when you work, especially on an island where digital work like mine are not like mainstream, I'm not like invited to many exhibitions. The exhibition I'm in is like open calls, or I'm being lucky to be selected by someone like Samantha. But yeah, so what I noticed over the years is that the odd kid that I was told to be, or that I was made fun of, I was odd because I saw life in a way that others didn't see it. And 20 years after, I realized that the oddity, I don't know if that's an English word, but the oddness, sorry, is actually my strength. And it was always my strength, but it's just that I had to find people that also accepted me in that way and also accepted myself in that way. So beyond even the artistic work, the creation work, for me, it's a question of listening to those voices that would say, go on the left, on the right, where everyone is going on the right, you just go on the left, because that's the way it comes. And trusting to be surrounded by people that will actually push you, encourage you, and not bring you down. So that's what would be the first advice. And then the second advice is that you have to eat, sleep, shower, art. I don't have any other advice than this, is that I'm on it all the time. Like even in my personal relationship, it's not easy sometimes because I'm on it all the time. Like I can be speaking with you and I see a logo on your shirt or I see something in your hair, I'm gone. I'm already on something else. And then I'll be like, sorry, what did you just say? So that's a base of frustrations also. But yeah, I think those will be my two main advices. Never abandon, accept that maybe today your work wouldn't be known or people wouldn't find your work interesting today. But in 2 years, 3 years, you will evolve, you will meet new people. And as you keep on pushing and searching, something has to come out of it. But sometimes it's not what you are expecting that's going to come out of it. And that's another third advice, is most of the times I go in a certain direction. I'm searching to do something because I'm inspired by something that I see. But the work, the accidents, the unpredicted things send me somewhere else. And in those somewhere else, I create new works that maybe I'm not satisfied with it, that I'm ashamed to show. But then when people see them, they're like, whoa, why didn't you showcase this before? And I'm like, no, it's not finished. It's just like, I'm still working on it. And actually, no, the piece is there, but I'm just not ready to show it. So you see, you would have these different movements, and it's all part of the game. And you just have to accept that that's the way it may go for you. And for someone else, it might go faster. It was a long answer, but
no, that was so helpful. Thank you. And it definitely strikes a chord with, I think, a lot of young people who feel like they need to know exactly what they're doing right away. And I guess art is a little bit more, it flows a little bit more than that. So yeah, that was absolutely incredible. And I'm kind of wrapping up with the questions that I have. So I'm curious if the chat has anything else that they want to ask before we wrap things up. And it's been such a pleasure to talk to you and to be able to ask you questions and to hear your answers. It's also very nice to speak with you directly after corresponding with you in email so much and being able to see your face. So
definitely.
Okay, we have one question in the chat that says, what does interactivity mean to you in your work, and how does it make you feel when you watch this interaction happen? And that's from Lara.
Thank you, Laura, for the question. I've been struggling with this question for a long time because in the French system, most of the time, whatever pieces of work you do, you have to explain every aspect of it. There's no you have the impression that there's no place for chance or accident. So you actually lift up your right hand. You have to mean something from that. And today, for me, interactivity, especially in a pandemic era, is joy. For me, I want it to be something joyful. I want people to be surprised. And that's why I like to use the random features of the digital art to constantly propose new configurations, so that sometimes the piece is the same piece, but still has something that's changed the next day you look at it. So interactivity for me today is really like the expression of joy. I'm a painter at first and photographer, and the limit for me of the painting and photography is that once the painting is done and once the photography is printed, I can't touch it. I can't go back and modify it. Whereas the digital arts and creation give me this opportunity to do version 2.0, 3.0, as long I feel inspired, and and I just follow my guts over that. So when I see people interacting with my pieces, actually, to be honest, I'm always like, oh gosh, I hope it's not gonna crash. I hope it's not gonna crash. That's my first gut feeling. And then secondly, I'm like, oh, I never imagined interacting with it in that sense. One of the pieces but the second piece that is going to be showcases from July, I saw a little girl play with it. She danced like for 20 minutes, and then she spent 20 other minutes only moving her hand like this. And the piece was doing things that I'd never imagined it would have been able to do. And I was like, I would have never imagined that. So I think I'm really excited by surprise, joy, and the unexpected. And that's really what motivates me to continue pushing my limits for like interactive works and stuff.
Well, thank you so much, David. And thank you, Sarah, for moderating our Q&A this evening. And thank you all for joining us. We hope to see you all soon at the Frist Art Museum, and we hope you'll come up to Martin ArtQuest so that you can see David's work, and then that you'll come back after July to see Tropical Bliss. We hope you all have a great evening. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Thank you all for having me.